Now, Iran is holding talks with Britain, France and Germany on its nuclear program this Tuesday. The delegation is meeting in Geneva amid the European nations' threat to trigger a snapback mechanism that would reintroduce UN sanctions that were lifted under the Iran nuclear deal. This unless Tehran agrees to restore cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency's inspectors. Ahead of the talks, the Iranian and Russian presidents have discussed Iran's nuclear program, although the two did not elaborate the content of their call. Iranian officials later thanked Vladimir Putin for supporting Tehran's right to enrichment. Joining me now from Washington, D.C. is Mark Fitzpatrick from the International Institute for Strategic Studies. Mark, thank you for your time. Europe is about to reimpose sanctions. Do you think this pressure is actually going to lead to real progress at today's meeting?
Depends on how you define progress. If sanctions are reimposed, it won't make Iran any more cooperative. I don't know if it'll have much economic impact either. It'll deteriorate the situation. But the question is whether the threat of sanctions would induce Iran to be more cooperative with the IAEA and to resume negotiations with the United States. I think part of that might happen, but most likely outcome really is that the can will be kicked down the road. The deadline for imposing these snapback sanctions, I think, may be extended.
Given what you've just been saying, is it the case that by Tehran agreeing to take part, is all they're doing is simply trying to stop sanctions from being enforced?
Well, yes, absolutely. That certainly is Iran's goal, is to stop the reimposition of the UN sanctions, which the three European parties have been talking about that for a couple of years now because of Iran's failure to adequately answer the IAEA's questions about nuclear activity that was discovered that Iran had never reported, and that points to potential weapons work. So this snapback idea has been in the works for a couple of years, and then it all got much worse in June when Iran's nuclear facilities were attacked by Israel and the United States, and then Iran stopped all cooperation with the IAEA.
And as you say, since that conflict with Israel, where does this leave the Iranian government as such when it comes to this issue? Are they wanting to make any compromises at all?
Well, yeah, I think that there's a real compromise that both sides could agree to, and that would be to invite the IAEA back into Iran, back into the destroyed facilities, so the IAEA could see for themselves at Natanz and Fordow and Esfahan. There's no big political reason not to do that. Iran has made accusations that the IAEA might have been complicit in the bombing by providing information. That's really not true at all. Iran has also accused the IAEA of not criticizing the bombing. Well, that's a political issue. I think if Iran can invite the IAEA back to doing what it was doing before the bombing, that might be enough. And Iran probably still, I don't think they will ever answer the IAEA's questions about that unreported nuclear activity years ago. But getting at least back to where we were before the bombing would be progress, and then they can talk more.
Are there disagreements within the Iranian government about how to deal with this issue?
Oh, I'm sure that there are disagreements. Iran is not a monolithic state where the supreme leader's word is authoritarian command and everybody salutes. No, there's a lot of policy discussions in Iran, and they tend to have to come together in a consensus before they move forward, and that's it delays decision making in Iran. I haven't heard explicitly which groups are advocating what, but generally pragmatists are more eager to cooperate with international organizations, more eager to engage in diplomatic solutions. Hardliners, of which there are more, and they're position has been strengthened after the bombing, don't want to make compromises.
Is there a sense after Israel's bombing of the status, of the state of Iran's nuclear program? I mean, just how bad it was hit?
Yeah, there are big questions about that. And that's one reason I, for one, would really like to see the IAEA go back in and would get a better picture of it. The biggest question is what happened with the 400 kilograms of highly enriched uranium that we know Iran produced before the bombing, but because it was in an IAEA report. And that highly enriched uranium was in various tanks, and we know probably that those tanks are intact because there was no release of the uranium hexafluoride gas. Nothing was reported on that. So these tanks, did Iran remove them from enrichment facilities before they were bombed, or were they in the facilities and then they were bombed, and then Iran would have to dig into the rubble to acquire them? That's one big question. Another question is how badly were the enrichment cascades at Fordo and Natanz damaged? The bombs did not completely obliterate these facilities, contrary to President Trump's claims. They certainly shook them up a lot, and I'm sure there's quite a bit of damage, but some of those cascades certainly were not destroyed, and it'll be interesting to know how many of them survived. And then that would tell us how much time it would take Iran to further enrich the uranium to produce weapons grade.
As you say there, Mark, many more questions than answers. Thank you again for your analysis.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Good to talk with France 24.